Call me crazy if you want, but I've never liked store-bought pesto.
Susie, that is unhinged. One time I was bartending and this man comes into the bar and he looks all like disheveled. He's all upset about something. And he's like, pour me a really strong drink. I'm like, okay, so I'm making him his drink. I'm like, what's up? What's going on? And he's like,
oh, this day is always so tough for me. It's the day that I lost the love of my life 30 years ago. I'm intrigued. It's a slow night. There's only like some townies playing pool over there. They've got a pitcher, they're fine. So I'm like all ears. I'm like, oh, tell me more. How did it happen? And so he starts telling me the story of how him and his girlfriend, they had this amazing relationship. It was like a secret relationship from her parents, because her parents were really strict and really religious. And they were just super in love, and they had plans to run off together and get married. One day he drops her off back at her parents' house. They say goodbye. Everything's great. They had a great date. And then she goes inside, and then he doesn't hear from her the next day, or the next day, or the next day. Days and days go on. He starts calling the parents' house, but nobody picks up. He just calls and calls and calls for days, and now weeks go by. He's still calling. Nobody ever picks up. He has no idea what happened. He's like heartbroken. Why would she ghost him like this? Why wouldn't she say something? Like, everything seemed fine on their date. Like, what is going on? And then eventually, like weeks later, he was just about to give up, and this time her mom picks up. And he's like, let's call her Julie. He's like, oh my gosh, like, is Julie okay? Like, I just want to check in. What's going on? I haven't heard from her. And her mom is like, don't ever call here again. Don't ever show up at our house. If you show up here, we will call the cops. Do not ever contact her again. Click. So he's just terrified, for one, but he's a young guy. He's like, what can he do? He doesn't want to get arrested. So he just moves on with his life.
but he never forgets her.
But I can't help but ask, like, where did this happen? Where were you guys growing up? He's like, oh, West Vancouver. I'm like, well, West Vancouver isn't very far from Surrey, where he lives now. Has he ever reached out to her now that they're grown up? Did he ever talk to her again? He's like, no, I have no idea what happened. I never heard from her again. And then I'm like, well, why don't you just look her up on Facebook? And he's like, what's that? Mind you, he is in his 50s, so maybe he doesn't know what Facebook is. And also, the story that I'm telling you, it happened over 10 years ago. So Facebook was pretty new. He just didn't know what it was. So I just pull out my phone and I'm like, oh, well, what's her name? Let's look her up. Okay, so he gives me her name. I go through a couple people, and then I find someone in West Vancouver. And I'm like, is this her? And I show him a picture, the profile picture, and his face just goes like, he's like, oh my God, that's her. He's shocked, right? So he's just staring at it. And I'm like, okay, cool. Well, we can see what we can see on her profile. Like, most of it was locked. He's just like mind boggled that this is possible. And I'm kind of going through the photos and like the things that I can see that's public on her profile. And I see that she has a daughter. So I'm like, oh, look, like she actually has a daughter. So I pull up the daughter's profile and I see, oh, she just had a birthday. She's 30. And I pull up the picture of her, and I swear to God, this woman has the exact same face as this man who was sitting at my bar. What do I do with this information? Well, I'm just like, look! She has a daughter that's 30 and looks just like you. He loses it. He starts crying. We just realized that potentially the reason why her parents banned her from seeing this man was because she was pregnant with his baby and they didn't approve of him, or whatever reasons they had. They kept it a secret and they kept him out of the kid's life.
So that was crazy.
Call me crazy if you want, but I've never liked store-bought pesto.
Susie, you nut. When I was in high school, I was really good friends with this girl named Ashley, and she was really confident. I just like really wanted her approval because I was like a little loser and had never kissed anybody, and Ashley was like hot and confident and had had a boyfriend before. But in retrospect, she was a very mean girl. She was like the kind of girl, you would just say something like silly or dumb to her, like tell her a little joke, and she would just look at you straight-faced and be like, that's not funny. She was mean. She was a mean girl. So anyway, in grade 9, I started dating my first boyfriend. His name's Shane. I'm obsessed with him. I'm just like happy that somebody even likes me. He was my first kiss. And a few months into dating Shane, Ashley and Shane make out at a party. And Shane and I break up. I'm devastated. I hate Ashley's fucking guts. I also hate Shane's guts, but it hurt more because Ashley and I were friends. but we also went to an all-girls Catholic high school, and it was a tiny high school. So I kind of was just forced to forgive Ashley because it would have been too awkward for me to openly hate her and resent her. So I kind of forgave her, but I didn't actually forgive her at all. I was holding a grudge. But she thought that I forgave her and that we were acquaintances. And so like 2 years go by since she made out with Shane, and I'd been hoping and actively praying for her demise, literally praying for her demise, because we went to an all-girls Catholic high school and had to go to mass. And so I hated her fucking guts, but she didn't know that. And then one day I go to sign into Facebook. And typically on my Facebook, I would be automatically signed in. But for some reason on this day, I wasn't, and I had to manually type in my email. But as I'm doing that, I realized that Ashley's email is saved to my computer from when we used to have sleepovers, and she would sign into her Facebook on my computer. So I click on her email, it signs me in to her Facebook, and I realized that this is the moment that I had been praying for. I open up her messages, and I send, "Give me back my fucking flip-flops," to the last 30 people that she had been talking to on Facebook. I sign out. I don't tell a soul that I have done this. In fact, I've never admitted this to anybody. I've never told anyone that I did this because I was so afraid of this getting back to Ashley. And the next day at school, she is losing her mind, freaking out because all these cute guys she was talking to thinks that she's weird now because someone sent them this message saying, "Give me back my fucking flip-flops." And she's just freaking out. I think people also like thought that she was lying for attention, like saying she got hacked, and she just like sent all the messages herself, and it was like all of this drama. And yeah, I never told anybody. And yeah, that's that.
Call me crazy if you want, but I've never liked store-bought.
That's crazy. You know what else is crazy? I texted my boyfriend last week to see if he wanted any snacks when I got off of work, because we will regularly do that for each other the days that we work late. Instead of responding with what tasty treats he wanted from the grocery store, he said that he really needed to tell me something, and that he needed space, and that he had gotten his own living spot. So I responded with, "Wait, what?" Because we've lived together for 3 years. We have 2 dogs together. We're both on the lease of the house that we live in. There was no signs of him wanting to get his own apartment. We were cuddling earlier that day. We've been kissing, saying "I love you," all the normal stuff. So you respond and say, "Wait, what? Can we talk about this? What's going on?" They don't respond. So you text them again frantically, and you say, "Are you going to be home when I get there?" And they say, "No, I will not be home." And then all of your text messages start going green, and all of your calls start going to voicemail. So you think you've been blocked. So you get into your house. You find their house keys on the kitchen table. You go into their office/closet room thing, and all of their stuff is gone except for a couple ties in the closet, some papers nailed to the wall, some trophies, and a pile of hangers on the floor. And 8 hours ago, nothing was packed, everything was fine. So you freak out trying to get a hold of this person, thinking that they're dead. You try to contact their dad. Over a span of 3 days, you have not heard anything from this person since they last texted you, "No, I will not be home." And you finally hear from them after 3 days, and they say that they still love you and that they want to talk, just not this weekend. And since then, the only communication you've had over the last couple of days is intermittent text messages in between them blocking and unblocking you.
Call me crazy if you want, but I've never liked store-bought pesto.
Oh my gosh, Susie, that is so crazy. That reminds me of the time I was moving out of my parents' house when I was 21, and I was cleaning out the closet, and I found a social security card in the crevice of the closet that had my name on it, but it really wasn't my name. My first name was spelled differently, and the last name was a last name I did not recognize. So naturally, I'm like, "Excuse me, who is this?" to my mother. For full disclosure, I was adopted when I was in 2nd grade. Before that, I was fostered, but with the same family. And the name that I knew that I was born with, that was on my birth certificate, was not this name. And it also wasn't the name that my name was changed to. So this is just like a third arbitrary name I never heard of. And her explanation was this was a typo. And she obviously wanted to help. So she threw it away from me. She told me to just forget about it, and she would discard the Social Security card because it was just a mistake. And she had it there for a long time. She didn't even know it still existed. Well, I never forgot about the Social Security card. And about 1.5 years later, I became pregnant with my daughter. And I became really curious about my identity because what am I going to tell this little baby that I'm having about our history, where we're from, you know, just ethnically. I know I'm from New York, but I don't know anything else. And one day I was at work at my little quiet retail job in Bushwick, and I decided to Google myself towards the end of my shift. I was like, let me look up this name. And I know that sounds like, oh, you should have been did that, but this was like 14 years ago, you guys. Give me a break. So I didn't know the power of Google. I Googled that name, and the first search that came up was a missing persons ad. Yeah. And it had my name at the top. So it was a forum archived from, I believe, 1997. And it was a forum for people looking for missing children around New York City. And they could post information about the children. And if you so happen to come across it, you can email them with any leads. The person that posted the ad, their name was Shantae, and they had very specific details about the hospital I was born in, the time around the time that I was born, and specific details about an address that I lived in very briefly. So I knew this person knew me, and I knew the name was me. Now I'm nervous. You know, all types of emotions are going on because I'm 7 months pregnant, and I'm obviously taking care of this retail store that has to close now. So in between mopping the floor, I find this strength, the emotional strength, to email this person and give them my phone number. I don't even say anything. I'm just like, I was like, call me, because, you know, I know this is me. Here's my number. And they emailed me back like 6 or 7 minutes later, no lie. I hear the ping, and they're like, Aisha, my name is Shantae, and I'm your brother. I've been looking for you your entire life. I'm going to call you soon. I'm so happy I found you. So now I'm jumping for joy, like up and down. I'm like, oh my God, I have a brother, and he's been looking for me since 1997. And how old is he? Because he must be grown if he, you know, just had the wherewithal to look for me in 1997. And I have all of these questions as I'm closing this tiny little retail store. As I'm pulling down the gate, I hear my phone buzz, and I'm fumbling to answer it. And lo and behold, as soon as I pick up, I go, hello? And it's a woman, and she goes, Aisha, God is so good. She immediately starts crying, and she goes, I'm your mother. I've been looking for you your whole life. And that was one of the craziest days of my life, but I don't know if it compares to the Pesto. I'm sorry, Susie, if I bored you with the story, but life is so crazy.
Call me crazy if you want, but I've never liked store-bought pesto.
Okay, that one's going to be a tough one to follow, but when I was a sophomore in high school, I participated in my first blood drive. The school held one every other month, and I was really excited because I was finally old enough to give blood, and one of the perks was you got to miss class and you got snacks and everything else. The only downside was that the person who ran the blood drive for the school was the math teacher that I could not stand. She was my mortal enemy. She was really mean. But after I'd finished giving blood, she came up to me and she pointed at the seat next to her station. She told me she wanted me to sit down next to her and have some snacks and recuperate, and maybe we could talk about my last math test that I didn't do so well on. And so when she turned her back, I left the room out of spite because I did not want to spend any more time than I had to with her. And I went back to class. And I finished out my day. It was a Friday, so the next day was the weekend. Over the weekend, I started feeling really lethargic and weak. And I had figured, I just gave blood. It's probably because of that. But also I didn't really know because that was the first time I had ever done it. So Sunday rolls around. I go to the evening mass with my family. By the time we're ready to receive the body of Christ and go up to the altar, I was feeling really, really dizzy, and I felt like I was going to pass out. So, because I'm one of those people that would rather suffer in silence, I didn't tell my dad what was happening. I just told him I needed to go to the bathroom because I would quite literally rather pass out in peace than have a medical emergency in front of anyone. So I make my way to the bathroom, and I guess I blacked out while on my way there because I ran into the holy water and I almost knocked it over. that got people's attention. And after that, somehow I made it to the bathroom. I think I supported myself on the hallway walls because I was wobbling. And then the next thing I remember, I'm waking up on the bathroom floor. My sister's standing over me crying, shaking me, trying to wake me up. I had passed out and cracked my head like really bad. But then I passed out again. And then the next time I woke up, an usher, like one of those church ushers who collect the money, was standing over me. It was this little old man, and he was frantic. He did not know what to do. And as soon as he saw me open my eyes, he said, honey, keep those eyes open. Keep those pretty eyes open. Help is on the way. Don't worry. Keep those eyes open. Stay with me. I said, fuck that, because I passed out again. And then the next thing I remember, I opened my eyes, and I'm in the activity room where all of the Sunday school kids did their arts and crafts. I don't know how I got there. I don't know if the usher picked me up or whoever, but I was there, and then I passed out again. And during my blackout, I'm hearing things happening around me. Apparently, they had already called the ambulance. Someone had called the ambulance when they realized there was a commotion. Someone passed out in the bathroom. So they were on their way, but I heard someone say, we cannot wait. We need a doctor. And my parish was actually full of doctors, so about 5 of them came back, I guess. And so I'm hearing them talk, and one of them says, how long has she not had a pulse and not been breathing? And they started freaking out because I was 16 years old. I was a teenager. They didn't know why this was happening to me. And then someone said, I don't know. I guess the usher didn't check my pulse, but that's okay. That's not his ministry. It's not his fault. But apparently I had been without pulse and breathing for a while. And then the priest made his way into the room, and he was praying. Turns out I died, Susie. I don't want to talk about it, but the paramedics came, they revived me, everything was fine. Actually, afterwards, they found out I had a couple of problems because I had given blood, but all in all, I was fine after that experience. But basically, I died despite my math teacher. So don't feel too bad about the pesto. It's okay.
Call me crazy if you want, but I've never liked store-bought pesto.
Susie, that's crazy. It kind of reminds me of the time when I was 21 years old, and my best friend and I had a bet of who could get more free meals from Tinder. And so I started, and I had a date with this guy, and he was really nice. It was a little awkward, and I really was only in it for the free food. And then I met another guy, and he took me out to breakfast, and he was literally a gem. And I was like, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? 1, I'm going to lose the bet. And 2, I really like this guy. I think I want to date him. So a month into our relationship, I was like, yes, he's the one. We're going to get married. We were saying, I love you. It was literally the best. And in that time, he turned 25. And for his 25th birthday, he was like, I'm going to buy a motorcycle. And I was like, that's a terrible idea, but I've only known you for a month. So what am I going to say? No. And so he bought a motorcycle. And then a couple weeks later, I went off to work at camp because that's what I did in college. And he was off like living his motorcycle life dreams. So at camp, we would call each other like every night, 9 o'clock. And one night came, and I knew he was like on a motorcycle trip with his buddies. And I called him at 9, and he didn't answer. And I was like, oh, probably riding, like not a big deal. Can't answer the phone while you're riding a motorcycle. So I just kind of let it go. Called him at 11, no answer. And I was like, that's weird. We call each other every night. Like we were on the phone talking. He didn't answer. And I was like, okay, maybe he's just riding again. Like totally cool. No worries. So, I went to bed, and then the Holy Spirit came over me at 2 a.m. and said, call him right now. So I picked up my phone, and at 2 a.m, I called him, and it rang a couple times, and a lady answered. And when the lady answered, she said, hello. And I said, hello, who is this? And she said, who is this? And I said, this is Tori. I am Devin's girlfriend. And she was like, oh, I'm so-and-so, and I'm a nurse at Grady Hospital in the ICU. And I was like, excuse me? And she was like, your boyfriend was in a terrible motorcycle crash and is in emergency surgery fighting for his life. And I said, excuse me? And she said, do you know who his family is? And I said, I've never met his family. We've been dating for 2 months. And she was like, I need you to get in touch with them because he has no next of kin. And I was like, okay. So I took to Facebook, and my face is like soaking wet. I'm sobbing while trying to do this and get in touch with this man's family that I've never met, but apparently I love him. So I go to Facebook, I message everyone. The next morning, his brother gets back to me and was like, what is going on? And he calls me and I said, your brother isn't Grady. I don't know much other than he was in a motorcycle crash and he's fighting for his life. So can you let everyone else know? Because I'm the only one that knows. And he was like, yeah, sure. And I said, okay, well, I will see you there. So we all go down to Grady Hospital. I meet this man's entire family in the waiting room in the ICU. Never met them before. Okay, so in this time, we find out that he had this wreck, that his handlebars went into his belly and cut his liver in half, made his stomach like swell, had all this internal bleeding, punctured both of his lungs, apparently one with air and one with water. Not that it matters anymore, but all of this stuff happened and they had to cut him from here all the way down to like his pelvic area to heal him, to help him heal, whatever, so he wouldn't explode or something. I don't know. In that, he suffered a spinal stroke. So he had no longer the ability to walk, and his right arm had been crushed from the accident, so it was also paralyzed. So within 2 months of knowing this man, he went from walking and being very adventurous to only having one limb that worked properly. Yeah, that was 6 years ago, and we're married.
Call me crazy if you want, but I've never liked store-bought pesto.
That's crazy, Susie. So when I was 17, I worked as a waitress in this restaurant, and this busboy and me became friends, and he was like, yo, I have this friend and you guys are so much alike. I think you would really hit it off. Like, I want you to meet my boy. And I'm like, there's no way to see a picture of him. So I was not into it at all. But he went and showed him my senior picture and he's like, yo, he thought you were so cute. Let me hook it up. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to have to see him. So he's like, we're going to be playing basketball down at the court. Why don't you just go past? So I go past. He points him out to me. I don't say hello or anything. I just go off to my job and I'm like, all right, he can have my number. So he ends up calling me and we're talking like, 10 minutes. We don't go to the same school, but we find out like we do have a lot in common and we're like 3 months apart, And then I'm like, well, what's your name? Like your last name, because we didn't discuss that. And his last name is the same as my last name. And I don't know my bio dad's family, but I'm like, okay, it's kind of a common last name, so that's not unusual. And I'm like, what is your dad's name? And he tells me, and it freaks me out because that's what I know. The only thing I know about my bio dad is his name. And I'm like, all right, well, this is just going to seal the deal. I'm like, does he have a tattoo on his shoulder that says Maggie Forever? Daltone. Hangs up on me. I'm like, are you kidding me? So yeah, that's crazy. That's how I found out where my biological father lived with my two brothers, who's only 3 months apart from me. So yeah, but you know what about the pesto? I grow garlic and basil, so I definitely don't like store-bought pesto either.
Call me crazy if you want, but I've never liked store-bought pesto.
Wow, Susie, that's absolutely deranged. One time years ago, my roommate started dating a guy that I had dated shortly before, which was wildly uncomfortable. Anyway, he was over one morning and they were in the shower in our shared bathroom. Not really showering from what I could hear. And I found myself in my bedroom, desperately needing to go to the bathroom really badly, but with no access to my bathroom because my roommate and my ex were in there having a little skyrockets in flight morning delight. Any hoodle, what do you do? What do you do when you really gotta go, but you don't have access to a toilet? I'll tell you what I did. I dropped trout, took off my underwear, crouched down with a giant handful of Kleenex, and I shit in my hand. I shit in my own hand. But then this 20-minute long shower was still not over. So I found myself standing in my bedroom, pantsless, holding a bindle of my own feces, just waiting for them to finish, both literally and metaphorically. Finally, they left. I ran into that bathroom, threw the bindle in the toilet. Of course, I hear a knock on the door saying, can we get back in there for a second? And I said, just a minute. Long story short, of course, That shit pile clogged the toilet, and for some reason she had put the plunger in our hall closet. It wasn't in the bathroom. I think it's because it was new, maybe. I want to believe that. The point is, I yelled out, "I need the plunger," opened the door, and came face to face with my ex, sheepishly and judgingly handing me that plunger for me to plunge down my absolute disgusting shame in that toilet. But yeah, store-bought pesto, not liking it. That is a wild take.
Call me crazy if you want, but I've never liked store-bought pesto.
That's crazy. I once was dating a girl and she calls me and she says, "Hey, I've been drinking. Can you come pick me up?" And it's late at night and she's out in the city. And I'm like, "Sure." So I drive out there and I pick her up and we're driving back. And I'm like, "Where have you been all day? I haven't heard from you." And she was like, "Oh, I was just hanging out with some friends." And I was like, "Oh, what'd you guys do?" And she was like, "Well, it was just me and we're going to call him Jeremy. It was just me and Jeremy." And I was like, "Your ex?" And she was like, "Yeah, it was his birthday." And I was like, "Oh, how did you get all the way out here to the city?" And she said, "He came and picked me up on his motorcycle." And I was like, "So you came out to the city on the back of your ex's motorcycle to celebrate his birthday? Just the two of you?" And she's like, "Yep." And I was like, "And I'm picking you up from this hotel?" And she's like, "Yep." And I was like, "I don't really like that." And by the end of the car ride, I apologized to her.
Call me crazy if you want, but I've never liked store-bought pesto.
Oh my god, you're freaking crazy, girl.
Let's make some pesto and talk about these stitches, because I keep getting a ton of questions. I don't know what you guys want from me. I think the question I get the most is, how do you feel about these stitches? I don't know, guys. I'll take you way back to the beginning. So when I posted the video, I didn't think much about it. One day, people decided to start stitching the video and calling me crazy, because in it I say, "Call me crazy if you want." Fair. They wanted to. So all these stitches started of just people being like, "You're so crazy." I didn't give two shits, to be honest. But I will say, I was getting like a ton of hate comments. The comments in some of the stitches were just really negative towards me. So I was like, fuck that. I just kept skipping. But then people reached out to me and they were like, "This is the most insane story." And that's when I realized people were like using it to tell actually crazy stories, which makes sense. I see a lot of confusion of how did this trend start? And I think it just started with people calling me crazy and being like, "That's not crazy, this is crazy." I have no idea who started it. I think that they deserve all the credit, whoever did. I did leave my stitches up though, just because hate doesn't bother me, especially when you've like dealt with way worse stuff in real life. I decided to jump on the trend. So fucking stupid, dude. At the time I was like, I don't know what to say, so I'll just make a stitch. I stitched this video talking about this one time when I was 18. It was like the first time I had been hungover. Basically I decided to give myself heat stroke so that my parents didn't find out I was hungover. And of course everybody took that as, "Oh my god, she's so innocent." When I jump on the trend, like acknowledge it, I've gotten so many comments that are like, "We're making fun of you." I hope you know we're making fun. I'm like, yeah, I know, bitch. Got this olive oil and grease, so we're making a fancy pesto. Some people are really chill about it. Oh, she's like going along with it, because I think people know, kind of being made fun of. Oh, the mold. It's fine. Guys, the stitches are crazy though. I watched a couple. Every 30 seconds, I get mentioned in a video. Can't really watch all of them, but some of them are crazy. Some of them are triggering. I feel really bad. My heart goes out to a lot of you who were kind of trauma dumping, and then some of them were just insane stories. Favorite ones are all the past life ones, spiritual ones. Oh, I love hearing that shit. See how this is tasting. It's so good. A lot of people ask me if I'm gonna drop like my own store-bought pesto line. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. One opportunity to, and they sent me pesto examples of what they had because we were gonna try to do a quick turnaround, and I said no. It was not good. Like, I stand by that, guys. So I really haven't found one that I do like. If you ever see me launch something like that, just know that it's actually good pesto and I probably made it. Let's also just talk about why store-bought pesto sucks, in my opinion. I feel like there's never enough garlic. It doesn't ever taste fresh. There's always too much oil. I swear to God, they just add random green shit to make it look like basil, like spinach or something. It never tastes like basil. I think that's about it. I also do want to say there have been people that are very, very nice to me. So thank you. It feels so bipolar. I think that's just like, it's just so weird. Getting like the nastiest, meanest comments to a week later being like, "We love you, Susie." It's just like an emotional roller coaster, but I do appreciate the people who have been nice to me. Like, that's very kind. Never bothered me that much. But the people who have gone out of their way to be nice, especially like Hank Green, poor Hank Green over here trying to defend me. It's so sweet. Look at that. That looks so freaking good. In summary, you guys are really funny. It's a funny way to create a trend. Hopefully this inspired some of you to make pesto because it's great. Maybe I'll launch something. I don't know. Cheers.